Drought, crop failure, food shortages, water shortages, conflicts over resources, superstorms, climate refugees, pestilence, and disease. This is but a glimpse into the future of our species as we incrementally descend into the sixth mass extinction event. Today we're going to talk about the record-breaking and anomalous weather patterns around the globe and what we might expect in the near future. Everything I discuss in this video is going to be based on scientific observations. It is not based on theory or conjecture. We are seeing records being broken around the world. Temperatures reported across Europe this year have already shattered previously existing records. Europe is in the thick of a second heat wave, or heat dome as it's called, which is caused in part by a stunted jet stream, which is attributed to a warmer Arctic, which is on track to see one of the lowest recorded sea ice levels in human history this year. The Arctic is, of course, warming twice as fast as the rest of the planet, a staggering 4 degrees as the Earth's air conditioner, as it's called, is slowly melting away. This includes parts of Alaska and Canada, which are also warming twice as fast as other parts of the northern and southern hemisphere. Many parts of Europe are now getting accustomed to temperatures which are rivaling that of the Sahara Desert. This current heat wave which has struck Europe is said now to be moving into the Arctic regions. So that is going to expedite the melting of sea ice even more, which will likely contribute to an all-time low in terms of sea ice volume. The less sea ice there is, the less sunlight is reflected back into outer space. This has the impact of heating that region even faster. Yet another of the positive self-reinforcing feedback loops that is capable of producing exponentially devastating climate outcomes. It's important to note that as the thermometer gets turned up around the world, more people are going to be relying on air conditioning. Unfortunately, air conditioning requires immense amounts of energy, and the byproduct of air conditioning is even more heat. So we find ourselves then in one of many vicious positive self-reinforcing feedback loops, which are only exacerbating these wild weather patterns that we're seeing around the world. Melting permafrost around the world is releasing methane, which is intensifying a greenhouse effect which is warming the planet even further. We're seeing temperature records being shattered throughout the Arctic regions. The most northern settlement of Canada reported the highest temperature ever recorded in June of 2019. What was really cause for scientific concern in this instance is that it not only broke the record for one day, but for 2 days in a row. Alaska has broken numerous records this year. Anchorage hit an all-time high of 90 degrees on Independence Day. There was a viral video circulating of a moose who, in an attempt to beat the heat, decided to go and sit on one of the lawns of an Anchorage resident and cool itself in the sprinklers. The Northwest Territories and other northern parts of Canada have also been constantly setting new heat records throughout 2019. However, this is a trend which has been going back several decades within these regions. As a result of these increased Arctic temperatures, enormous wildfires are currently spreading there. India, which is soon to be the most populous country on Earth, is running out of water. Cities are literally having water shipped in to provide for their inhabitants. This is causing agricultural problems, including massive drought and year after year rapid increases in temperature resulting from rapid industrialization and increased energy consumption as the standard of living throughout Asian countries continues to rise. That's more people who drive cars, more people who want air conditioning, and more people who generally have a larger ecological footprint than previous generations. This is but one of hundreds of factors which is accelerating these climate disasters within these regions. This is inevitably going to result in a massive exodus from these regions. We are already seeing the impacts of refugees fleeing their countries, in some cases for political reasons, but when you dig deep enough, it's not hard to tie a lot of that political turmoil to resource scarcity and abrupt changes in climate. These so-called climate refugees are going to drastically increase in number in the coming years, and this will further escalate civil tensions within receiving countries. June 2019 was the hottest June recorded in human history. The last 5 years, including 2019, will have been the hottest 5 years on record. Initially, the consensus in the scientific community was that by the year 2100 we would start seeing these devastating effects of an increasingly warmer planet. Since then, that date has been bumped up to 2050, and then 2030, and now 2020. Australia continues to find itself in its hottest year on record, with temperatures which far exceeded previous records. North America, on the other hand, in many parts, has been spared the worst of the heat as pertains to these changes in weather, but it has not been spared from record wildfires, record flooding, and record storm systems. Although indeed parts of North America continue to break heat records, and on the whole there is an upward warming trend. One of the most terrifying aspects of all of this should be the fact that there is a 20-year lag in terms of CO2 concentrations and consequential warming. That is, the heightened temperatures that we are seeing today were initiated and caused by CO2 infusions 20 years ago. Since that time, we have added 20 more years of industrial refuse into the atmosphere. This means that in 20 years, even if we were to suspend all of the negative industrial processes contributing to this problem, we will still see a drastically inclined increase in temperature, and eventually this is going to make its way into the food chain. There will be food shortages, there will be food riots, there will be political upheaval, there will be outbreaks of disease, there will be global conflict over resources. There's a saying that says we are 3 meals away from anarchy. And we can extend that to the macro scale and say that we are but 3 massive crop failures away from global unrest, mass starvation, and the collapse of industrial civilization. Increasingly, the views of the mainstream are starting to coincide more and more with those predicted by the often ridiculed Guy McPherson. He finds himself a part of a fringe group of climate scientists who essentially believe that there is no stopping the 6th mass extinction, also known as the Anthropocene extinction, aka a man-made extinction level event. What most people misinterpret about climate alarmism, many people who are tired of being hoodwinked by the mainstream media and the government have lost faith in academic institutions and the integrity of their research. However, there's a growing community of scientists, many of them who are being marginalized and demonized, who are starting to sound the alarm on what's coming. And they are saying that the mainstream projections of what's coming are grossly underestimating the seriousness of the situation. It would make sense that governments would want to minimize panic over a problem like this, not only to fulfill their financial commitments to various industries, but also to minimize societal unrest and keep the peace as these bleak climate projections gradually become reality, while at the same time appearing to fulfill their obligations by drafting and signing on to global initiatives to address the causes of the warming issue that nearly all climate scientists believe is too little, and many believe it's far too late. Because of these positive self-reinforcing feedback loops, the rapidity of these changes may well be exponential as opposed to linear. This means that the worst-case projections by global climate organizations may in fact be far worse and come much faster than we can anticipate, meaning that we are potentially just years away from a series of cataclysmic events induced by a rapid increase in global temperature. How do we prepare for what's coming? Energy is the answer to everything. Getting an off-grid solar system in order to brace ourselves for the incoming heat waves and all of the other anomalous weather events that it brings, which are not only heat waves, but freakish hailstorms that they've seen in South America, freakish flooding due to increased moisture in the atmosphere caused by more evaporation, other wild meteorological events, wildfires. We need to be in control of our own energy. Anybody who considers themselves a serious prepper, homesteader, or survivalist should be thinking about how they're going to generate energy in the future, because energy is going to be what saves you. We may reach a point where air conditioning is not just a luxury, but an absolute necessity in order to survive. We may reach a point where the only way you're going to be able to grow crops is in the controlled environment of a greenhouse. So one of my main goals for the near future is to strategically relocate to a place where this sort of lifestyle is going to be feasible. And once a viable location has been established, installing an off-grid power generation system which will be comprised of solar and wind energy harvesting methods. The time to take off-grid preparation seriously is now. Suffice it to say, we cannot rely on the mainstream media to alert us to these impending global catastrophes, at least insofar as it isn't profitable and in line with the ambitions of the global economic status quo. The role of mass media is to sell advertising and minimize panic. It becomes increasingly difficult to rely on these mainstream media organizations who promote initiatives like the Paris Accord, which even the most optimistic of scientists believe is far too little and far too late. In situations like these, we would be wise to plan for the worst. Thanks for watching. Stay prepared, stay vigilant, and enjoy the moments that you have with your family and friends while you do have them. Canadian Prepper out.